Good afternoon po, everyone. For all the newcomers, again, I'm Leon Ezequiel Iscaris, an intern from the Ateneo Salt, and I will be your room coordinator for Room 5 of the ADL Learning Exchange. Our next speaker is an English professor in the Ateneo de Manila University, Mr. Jovie Espino. He will share with us his experience in using polls instead of discussion boards for formative assessments. His sharing will also highlight how the usage of polls has helped both him and his students operate in the online learning and teaching setup. The floor is now yours, Mr. Espino. You may now unmute yourself and begin your presentation. Thank you.
There. All right. Thank you for that, Leon. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jovie Espino, and you can call me Jovie. Uh, and you can call me Jovie, and I'm from the English department. I'm teaching freshman English and an interdisciplinary elective in English as well. Thank you for coming to this session where I talk about how I use polls as a way to vary my content in my Canvas modules. I'd like to begin with an assumption. At the risk of assuming things, like what most of you felt at the start of our online teaching journey, I was very anxious to transition to a fully online setup for so many reasons. And this image is probably the best image and the most accurate representation of my feelings at that time. And it continues to be that feeling, it continues to be that image until now. But let me zero in on one of the reasons why. As someone who teaches a language in a literature class participation through discussions, through the sharing of insights, and even feelings and emotions, and everything in between, these have been the lifeblood of the courses that I have taught for the past 3 years in Ateneo. It was very hard for me to imagine and to visualize how a discussion of a really good short story, for example, or a very difficult poem, for example, it was very difficult for me to imagine how that can transpire in an online means where I can't see the sparkling eyes of my students, for example, whenever a profound insight takes hold of them, whenever they realize something about the craft of the writer, for example. That's why when Ateneo announced that it will make use of Canvas as its official LMS and it has this discussion board feature, somehow the anxiety lessened. But and as a teacher of English language and literature, I love discussion boards because reading the responses and the insights of my students, it's also a learning experience for me. It's very enlightening to see their take on things, how they process the different things and the different texts that we read in class. Most especially now, and perhaps you also have noticed this, that students seem to the insights and the responses of students tend to be more profound in this day and age, since they probably have more time to prepare for their answers and to think of their answers and of their insights that they will share in the discussion board. Okay? However, if you are teaching three classes with 27 to 28 or so students, all writing their insights on the discussion boards as if every day or as if every discussion board is an essay writing contest. No matter how gratifying the experience is, no matter how enriching the experience could be, as what famous philosopher Marie Kondo once said or asked, does it spark joy? Does it still spark joy in your life? And that goes for both teacher and for both students. At one point, to be honest, I really dreaded seeing the notification page on my Canvas app and on my phone and on my laptop, seeing that red ink and listing or enumerating the number of things that I need to check somehow became a nightmare for me. I noticed too that in the student profile that I ask my students to submit to me at the start of every semester, whenever I ask them or whenever they share what they're expecting from the course, one feedback rings a little bit more consistently than the others. And it says, I hope that we don't answer a lot of discussion boards in this class. And every time I read that, this is probably the face that I make. because it's such a very difficult position for me. Because first and foremost, it's an English class, hello, which means that you'll be definitely writing a lot in this class. And two, how on earth will we have classes if I don't make you answer discussion boards or write your responses on the discussion boards to drive forward our topics? And so, with these questions and with these concerns in mind, thus came the decision to try something new and use polls as a means to put variety in the module and try to balance the rigor and the engagement as well on the part of the students. Ultimately, it's rooted in these three reasons. Number one, to help the students manage their workload, to help them lessen the discussion boards that the students need to do, seeing that they also have other subjects or other discussion boards to do in their other subjects, but at the same time, not compromising the quality of teaching and learning. I did not let go of the discussion boards fully in my module, but I decided to make students answer discussion board questions that will require them to synthesize and evaluate information, which happens usually towards the end of every module. And number two, if I'm being honest about it, I want to lessen also my own workload, to lessen also the responses that I will be checking and reading as a teacher. As I've mentioned, I really love discussion boards and I really love reading the responses of my students there. But a part of me feels really insecure when I don't get to answer, or I don't get to reply to the students' responses or to their insights. And I know that it's not a practical and advisable thing to do, to reply to every student in the discussion board. And I know that that has been mentioned in one of the ADL sessions before. But it's a personal choice of mine to do, because I want my students to feel that their insights and that they're sharing in the discussion boards are seen. It's validated, it's challenged sometimes, and it's elaborated on by the teacher, which is me. Hence, I want to minimize a lot of discussion boards. So I, as a teacher, can reserve my energy responding to the answers and to the insights of my students in the discussion boards. And third, to still have a means of assessment or for assessment that is fairly quick, engaging, and one that does not feel like a burden on both the part of the student and of the teacher as well. Now, how did I do it? First, I had to make sure that there is a free platform for polls, and a lot of students have mentioned poll everywhere, so I resorted to that. Seeing that this is also what most of them are familiar with, which also means that I don't need to introduce a new platform to them anymore. The interface also of Poll Everywhere is nice, and it's easy to use and to manage it, and it provides a variety of means to answer questions. It could be in the form of a multiple choice, could be in the form of a word cloud, a clickable image, and so on and so forth. I have yet to discover the other features of Poll Everywhere that I can use in the context of the subjects that I'm teaching. But I feel that what's good about it is that no matter what your subject, no matter what subject you're teaching, I think there's an option for you to try with Poll Everywhere. So for example, I have decided to use the word cloud option here. As soon as I click the word cloud, this box will appear and will ask me to input my question, my prompt, or my direction. For example, in one of the subjects that I'm teaching, my students just listened to a recorded lecture on the topic of order as a narrative element. After listening to the lecture, as part of the processing and the application task, I want them to share from their own context some titles of narratives that follow a non-linear approach. So I type that on the text box here. And as soon as I'm satisfied with the question and with the direction that I have written, I click on the word create, which will lead me then to this window right here that you see on the screen, where I can adjust and play with the settings of the poll, including how it will look like in the visual settings there, whether responses are anonymous or not, how many times they can respond, whether they can change or edit their answers, and so on and so forth. And as soon as I'm happy with the settings and I'm ready to share it to the class, I will go to to the tab labeled as present, the one that you see here, number three, where I will be given the option to either share a link of the poll or to embed it on my Canvas module. I always choose to copy the link and share it to the students, because what I want to embed on the Canvas page is the results page of the poll, so the students can also see the responses of their classmates. So there. Um And assuming that say for example, going by that example, assuming that you saw the link already on our Canvas page and you click it should lead you, or it will lead the students to this particular page, the question the page where it has the question of the poll. For example, what are your favorite stories that mess up the timeline? And you will be asked to respond or put your input on this response box. And as soon as you submit that, once you go back to our Canvas page, what you will then see are the results page of the poll. So you can also see and check out the responses of your other classmates, just like this one, for example. And to do that, you can just simply go to the setting in the present tab. And as soon as you click it, the options live results, the one that you see here below, will come out. Copy the embed script right over here if you want to embed the results page to your Canvas module so the students can see the results page as well. Just like this one, for example. In deciding when to use polls, I try to be as purposeful as possible in deciding when to use it. Um, I try to balance polls as well. I try to balance polls and discussion boards in my module so students will have ample opportunities as well to expound on their insights. And mostly, I use polls in parts of my module after a recorded lecture or podcast, much in the same way that I will ask a variety of questions, yes or no questions, making connections questions to my students during face-to-face classes. For example, in this part of my module, the students and I are learning about the role of language in building discourses and how the words that we use can align people to our side or can alienate them at some point. After listening to my lecture and discussion about that topic, I asked the students in the form of a poll to think of words that make people feel or react strongly. And these are some of the answers with some votes also in the process. And the answers that the students gave in the poll are then I use it during the synchronous classes when we process and recap the concepts together, the big ideas and the concepts in the previous module. This provides me as well as a teacher to have an agenda during my sync sessions and to allow students to expound on these answers and to give them an avenue where they can talk since they love talking so much, and when they can further discuss what they wrote and answered in the poll. Admittedly, this practice is not yet perfect, and I have yet to see whether the students appreciate it or not. But on my part as a teacher, I like that there seems to be a break from the monotony of a discussion board on Canvas, plus the fact that both my students and I can reserve our energy in the more demanding parts and tasks in my module. I also think that it's a fairly useful feedback tool that gives me the signal whether the students are retaining information from the module or not, and use that information as we move forward. And moving forward, I want to explore if there is a possibility for students to also launch and create their own polls to stimulate discussions amongst their classmates, because who knows, it might just be the next thing that will spark joy in their learning online environment. Thank you very much for coming, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Espino. We love the use of your memes also in your presentation. And the floor is now open for any questions or comments regarding Sir sharing. You may unmute yourselves or type the questions in the chat. And we have until 4 o'clock p.m. for the Q&A. If anyone has questions, I will just read your questions now. We have a question from Ines Bautista Yao. Do you grade your polls daw po ba?
Oh, no, I don't grade them. It's just really an engagement tool for them and to scaffold instruction as well, to prepare them for the for the more grand discussion board question.
From Frances Paula D. Perez. Is poll everywhere free?
Yes, it's free. But I think there's a limit lang to the number of polls that you can make. So delete na lang pag tapos na siyang gamitin after the end of the course.
From Armando Jr. Miklat. why not place the polls in the syllabus? There are department heads who are very strict in delivering the syllabus.
Oh, thank you for that, Sir Armando. That's something that we can that I can consider also in the future. Thank you for that.
If there are no more questions, okay, we have one question from Sir Galvin. Are there types of content that lend themselves better to polls than discussion forums?
Yes, I believe so. So it's also a matter of choosing which content will really apply themselves well to poll discussions. Because yes, not everything can be engaged or can be transformed into a poll discussion. So it's really at the end of the day, it's really finding the right balance and the appropriateness of the content as well. Yes, I was just looking for variety when I tried this, but I've yet to explore how else this particular feature can be maximized also.
I guess I can give a comment as a student myself. I think using polls for the online setting is really helpful because it gives students freedom po, and it allows them to be creative din po. So yes, so I think that's a really good way to change things up po in the online setting. We have another question po from Floy Soriano. Saan pinaka-effective gamitin ng poll everywhere app?
Um, by effective, sir, you mean like
Yeah.
pinaka-effective? Ay, Ma'am Floy pa, sorry.
Kasi we handle a number of students like 100, yun. So, nakikita namin na para siyang entrance or exit ng or pero yun ang tanong ko, anong in terms of di ba hindi mo naman siya maihambing totally sa discussion board kasi may content ka talaga yung nahanap. Pero saan pinaka-effective gamitin ang yung polls app?
Um, Personally po, sa experience ko, right after listening to a lecture or after giving them a reading, just for them to sort of make sense of what they listened to and what they read. Para lang may idea ka as a teacher kung naintindihan, kung may na-pick up ba sila doon. That's where I think it's most effective. Para lang to sort of do a check-up assessment on them. Very quick assessment.
Thank you po.
Thank you. Do I also use polls in Zoom during sync? Yes, I also make use of them during sync sessions. Did you experience more responses in poll everywhere than in the discussion boards? I don't have the data yet as of now because one of my problems actually as a teacher is that I think I don't know with the freshman students. So parang sobrang game na game silang mag-discuss sa discussion board. So parang yun nga, like what I said kanina, parang laging essay writing contest, even if may instructions na to limit their answers to this type, to this number of sentences. Some of them would still exceed. So I don't have the data yet, Sir J, whether they are more responsive in poll everywhere than in discussion boards. Since especially my discussion boards are graded, so I have no data yet. When you share the poll results, do you embed it on a separate module page? Do students get to respond or interact with the poll results? With regard to question number one, Sir Ariel, I embed it on the page kung nasan po yung input. So for example, yung video lecture is nasa isang page. Nandun din po yung nandun din po yung link ng poll everywhere, including the results page. the students get to respond or interact with the poll results, we do that na lang po during the sync classes. And sometimes some of them will respond to or will leave a comment on the Canvas page, and will try to further expound on one of the responses that they see, even if they're not prompted.
Salamat, Jovie. Sorry, may pahabol. Si Ariel ito, may pahabol ako, Jovie. So, ibig mo sabihin yung poll results, parang dahil naka-embed siya dun sa question page mo rin, tama? Ano, ng Canvas module page, na nagbabago din yung itsura. Tama ba? Nakikita nila,
Yes.
so active. So parang when the students get to visit that same page, makikita nila, ay, may iba ng bumoto or may iba ng results na lumabas. Oh, okay. So ano siya? Buhay. Buhay din yung page. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Are the polls anonymous? Does the anonymity help? Yes, the polls are anonymous. And I think it helps because mas hindi sila nahihiya to share and discuss what's on their mind, no matter how simple it might be. So I think it helps. The anonymity helps. Because I think one of the feedback also that was shared is that sometimes the students they'll feel na for those students who are not good writers, they feel intimidated when they see that that the answers of their classmates to the discussion boards are so well crafted. Parang yun nga, essay writing contest. So parang nahihiya sila on their part. They get intimidated that in turn, parang di na lang sila nag-share and nag-respond sa discussion board.
If there are no more questions, I guess we can end the session a bit earlier. But thank you so much, Sir Espino, and all the participants who joined us for this session. You may now move to the next session, and I will be posting in chat the master document again for the Zoom links of the other sessions, just in case anyone needs it po. Again, thank you po very much, Sir Jovie. And we also invite you to share your thoughts, questions, or insights from the session at gbseal.online/share. Thank you, everyone.